Let's introduce the players. With the white pieces, Nils Grandelius. He is Swedish number 1. 27 years old, rating 2677. With the black pieces, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, known as MVL. He is French number 1. 30 years old, rating of 2773. This game took place in Tata Steel, the first big classical tournament of the year in Wijk Aan Zee in the Netherlands. The interesting fact is they've both been on Team Magnus Carlsen, helping him prepare for the last World Championship match against Fabiano Caruana, the world number 2. There will be a quiz at the end to test what you've learned from this video. Nils Grandelius has white, MVL has black. The game began e4, c5, the Sicilian, knight f3, d6, d4, the open Sicilian, take, knight f6, knight c3, a6. As a Sicilian Najdorf player myself, I'm very excited to see this opening being played at the highest level. After a6, white now goes for the very aggressive option, bishop g5. e6 played. Personally, I like knight bd7 because it's just so sharp, the e6 variation, as we will see very soon. This is a nice way to play because knights defend each other. So one example line is f4, queen c7, after queen f3 you go g6. Then ideas of going b5, bishop b7, and then bishop g7, we have a double fianchetto. It's a completely different line. I picked this up because I watched Chess24's course by Sopiko Gurmashvili on the Najdorf. Bishop g5, e6, f4, queen b6. This is the poison pawn variation. And after queen d2, this is the poison pawn variation. Queen takes b2, rook b1 or knight b3, queen a3. By the way, I just want to show you an opening trap. I know it's not the game, but knight b3, h6. In his position, white can take the knight, but if he goes bishop h4, notice this pawn is actually hanging. Black can win it with queen e3 check. After queen e2, queen takes f4. The queen is not trapped. Bishop g3, queen g5, the queen can come back in the game. Back to the game, after rook b1, queen a3, f5 was played in the game. I want to show you another opening trap. Bishop takes f6 is actually a really bad move because it gives black an option. And notice in the game, f5, bishop e7 is now played by Maxime. If you take early, take and then go f5, clamping black's position down, black has an extra option here. He doesn't have to go bishop e7, that's the problem. The queen on a3 attacks the knight on c3, but you might just think, it's well defended by the queen on d2. No, it isn't, because the bishop can actually attack queen with bishop h6. This option gives black a huge advantage. Can't take this, because after check, you're just going to drop both knights. Queen d3 to defend, and then queen c5. Black is much better. Not only is he a pawn up, but black can put a piece on the central square e5. Ideally, rerouting this bishop to f4 and then to e5, but if not, you can put a knight on e5 soon, or even put the queen on e5. Black has so much dark square control. f5, bishop e7 played by Maxime. F takes e6, bishop takes e6. This move is absolutely stunning. F takes e6, it looks like black's position is just completely crumbling because of bishop c4. There's just too much pressure on that central pawn. Bishop e7. F takes e6, bishop takes e6. The first time I saw this move, I was absolutely stunned. I couldn't believe that you could take with the bishop and leave the pawn on b7 on pre. But there's a very cool maneuver coming up, which I'm very excited to show. I first saw this recapture option back in 2019. This was a game between Wei Yi versus Nepomniachtchi. The reason this move is stunning is because after knight takes e6, f takes e6, if you play a move like bishop c4, it just looks like black's position is completely crumbling. This pawn is going to drop. I mean, that's the worst move ever because you just cannot castle. By the way, if you're thinking rook takes b7, white could have just got his pawn back, right? But this is a really nice way for black to just get his queen back in the game, queen c5. This is a great move because it stops bishop c4. If a Najdorf player gets this move in, having grabbed the pawn on b2, then black tends to be doing very well. It is important for white to not grab the pawn on b7. It is not as useful as the one on e6. Grandelius goes bishop c4 to attack it, and here we go. This is the beautiful maneuver I first saw in 2019, from Nepomniachtchi, you can actually play knight d7. e5 is absolutely tragic, so knight d7, here we go. In my opinion, it just looks like the entire black position is collapsing after bishop takes e6, but no, you go knight c5, and here we go. This is the point. Knight goes from b8 to d7 to c5. Now both knights put pressure on e4. So you give up a key central pawn, but you gain time to attack white center. The knight on c5 does three things. It attacks the bishop, it attacks the center, and it defends the pawn on b7. So knight c5 is just a fantastic maneuver, which I saw back in 2019. The bishop goes back to b3. If bishop c4, here is another opening trap, but it's such a deep trap I have to show you. After bishop c4, if you grab the pawn on e4, we are now following a game between Caruana and MVL. Take, take, and there's an absolutely brilliant move here. I'll play it first because it's unlikely you've seen it. Bishop f7 check, wow. Absolutely amazing. If you take, then check, and then queen takes knight. The sequence doesn't end here, because black has queen a5 check. Caruana had all of this in his preparation. The king just slides over, and then after queen takes bishop, rook takes pawn. Putting pressure on the bishop on the e file, it just cannot move. Rook f8, rook e1, there's just too much pressure. Rook f7, and a really cool tactic, just to get your bishop back. Rook takes e7 check, take, queen takes a8 check, check, and the game goes on. White eventually won this game. The big reason is black's king is not safe. Back to this game, bishop b3 was played. Rook c8 played by Maxime. Same problem, you can't play this because we will actually get the same trap. Bishop f7 check. What a wonderful trap to set up against your opponent. Rook c8, this is such a good move because it forces white to take back with the rook. After castle, knight takes b3, you have to take with the rook. The reason a takes b3 is terrible is because of queen c5 check. And then you drop the knight. Rook takes b3 played. Check by Maxime, bishop e3, queen c4 played. If you play queen c7 or queen c6, doesn't matter. White is going to play knight d5, and this is just too dangerous. Take, take, the queen moves, and take your pick. Put the bishop on d4, put the bishop on g5. Notice black cannot castle. Bishop d4 just looks so good. I like this option because it allows the rook to come in the center as well. Queen c7 is even worse because knight d5 you attack the queen. And after take, you can actually play queen takes d5. Every single white piece is in the attack, and black's king has no safe home. Queen c4. Nils now plays an excellent move. Queen c4 is great because you need knight and queen to attack the central pawn. And Nils defends it from the side. Rook f4, it looks very artificial to defend from the side, but not only does it defend the pawn, but it sets up a threat. If you play the careless move castle, white can now just win a piece. The rook indirectly attacks the queen on c4, e5 is played, and you will lose a piece. Save your queen, and you're down a knight. That's why after rook f4, queen e6 was played. But MVL had one move which he had to play. He can't retreat the queen, or else he is going to be much worse. The rook on f4 is such a problem. Knight h5 is a cool way to continue. If you play rook f3, black can just bring the knight back. He doesn't really have another good move, because if he doesn't bring the knight back, let's say he plays b5, knight d5 is so problematic. This knight is so strong in the center, attacking bishop, coming into b6. Also rook c3. Oh yeah, crikey, rook c3. Coming on the c file. That's why after rook f3, Maxime might have to go knight f6, and then maybe there's a repetition. Maybe Nils can play on with a move like queen d4 or queen d3. Back to the game. Black actually played queen e6, but this drops the pawn on b7. Rook takes pawn. The good thing is black has castled. Overall, what's happening? White's up a pawn. But there's still a lot to do to win this position. h3. Cool move just to keep some control. Giving the king space. Pawn here controls another light square. Rook b8 played. Offering a trade, which normally you go for because white's a pawn up. But Nils is saying, you're going to trade on my terms. I'm going to play rook a7. Very accurate move. Forcing the black rook into the corner. Rook a8. Now we take. Knight in. White is playing with the initiative. White is the one in control. Rook b8, c4, defending your knight. White has a Maroczy bind. You got pawns on c4 and e4 controlling the square on d5. Bishop back to d8, queen f2, putting pressure on the f-file. Knight d7, bishop d4. There's total harmony among all the white pieces. Knight, bishop, 2 pawns, rook, queen. Such a well-played game by Grandelius. Bishop g5, attacking the rook, so rook up. Bishop h6. You are showing your opponent who is boss when you can play a move like king h2. Just taking the time to improve the king. Rook c8, played by Maxime, attacking the pawn on c4. The question must be, why not queen takes e4? Now's your chance to pause the video or let the timer run. Can you see a way for white to continue? Attack. Rook f7, attacks the knight. If you play queen e6, you don't attack the knight anymore, you attack the queen. It's not actually well placed on e6. Rook e7, perfect move. The queen has a square on g6, but it doesn't matter, you lose the knight. After queen e4, if you went queen all the way back to e8, then this is losing. Same move, rook e7, forcing the queen away. If you come out, you lose the knight, but if you play queen d8, pause the video, I'll give you 3 seconds. Can you find a checkmate in 3 moves? First move, in, queen f7 check, king in the corner. Perfect bishop on d4. Time to cash in. Take with check, take, and mate. Rook attacks pawn, queen attacks pawn. But Nils just ignores it. He's playing one attacking move after the other. It's just such an amazing game from him. Queen g3, what a move. g6 was played in the game, but the question must be, why not rook takes c4? Another moment to pause the video. Can you find a brilliant move for white? And the clue is, you don't move the bishop on d4, even though it's attacked. Cool move, queen b3, gorgeous. Just swing the queen over to the queen side. Rook takes bishop, doesn't work, because now we're using the pin, the diagonal, the b3 g8 diagonal. Knight e7 check is a brilliant move. Winning the queen. King goes in the corner, and you can pick up the queen. Perfect tactic. Queen g3, g6. Nils now plays another brilliant move. It is like one brilliant move after another, just to continue the attack. g6, queen h4, brilliant move. Bishop f8 was played, but first question must be, why don't you take the rook? When I was analysing this without a computer, I was thinking knight e7 check, and then knight c8. And after this, maybe white's winning. Maybe white's a lot better because the king isn't as safe, but there's actually a clearer path to victory. After take, you don't play knight e7 check, you play this absolutely gorgeous move, e takes f5. Just this tiny in-between move, you capture the pawn and the queen has actually run out of squares. Brilliant. Queen f7, knight e7 check, and then you take. With this capture, you force the king to the left to f8, and 2 threats, queen d8, and queen takes bishop. Queen h4, brilliant move from Grandelius. Bishop retreats, another great one. Rook f6, wow. Queen retreats. So first question must be, why not knight takes? Let's have a look. Check. King can't go in the corner because queen takes h7 is mate, so the king comes out. Queen takes pawn, check. Bishop g7. I'll give you 3 seconds to find a move. Knight g4. Using the pin along the 7th rank. Rook g8. Using the pin, knight h6 check, just winning everything. Because after king f8, very accurate sequence now. Very accurate. You swap bishops first. Bishop takes check, and after rook takes, queen in the corner. Just such a clean finish. The king can't go anywhere, except at e7, but then you lose your rook. So you got to block with your rook, and everything comes off. Take, 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 take. 5 versus 3 in a pawn endgame, completely winning for white. Rook f6, queen back to e8. Nils plays yet another attacking move. This bishop is such a useful defender, guarding g7 and e7. Nils sacrifices a rook temporarily. Rook takes f8 check. Black can recapture this rook 3 ways and they all lose. Knight takes f8 is the worst one because knight f6 check will win the queen. If you take with the king, then the queen comes in to h6 with check, and then it will be checkmate very soon. So let's have a look at that. Queen h6 check. Can't go to g8 because queen g7 is mate, so the king has to come forward. Can't go here because of the knight, so the only legal square is to f7. Queen in. King can't go to any of the red arrows, can only come to e6. And then a beautiful backward knight move, giving checkmate, knight f4. The king cannot go anywhere. A beautiful sequence. After rook takes bishop check, queen takes was played. Knight e7 check. Forking king and rook. The game is over. King f7, knight takes rook. In this position, black resigned. MVL resigned because if you take the knight, then queen takes h7 check. If the king goes back, then queen h8 check will just pick up the queen. After check, if the king comes forward, then check. And you're just so many pawns down. You're 3 pawns down, and you've got an attack. So king here, I mean this pawn will not drop because you can still throw in, check. The king moves wherever, doesn't matter. If it comes to the side, check. And it's all over. Perfect queen in the middle, perfect bishop, and you've got 2 pawns. Overall, you're 3 pawns up, and you've got the attack. Time to resign. What a fantastic, brilliant attacking game by Grandelius. Time for a quiz. In this position, f5 was played. Do you remember what is wrong with bishop takes f6? And after g takes f6, now white plays f5. What resource does black have now? Now's your chance to pause the video or let the timer run. Can you see it? Black does not have to put the bishop here. Black can play bishop h6. You can't take because both knights drop with check. Check, completely losing. After f5, bishop h6, white should just play queen d3, and after queen c5, black is much better. A dream situation is to bring this bishop to e5. If you can't do that, this knight can go to e5. And you know what? Even the queen can go to e5. Here is another trap. I know this didn't happen in the game, but after knight b3, black could play bishop e7. But just to show you, if h6, white could take the knight, but if he retreats, what move can black play now? This is an opening trap a lot of people have fallen for. The move is queen e3 check, and after queen e2, you drop your pawn. This queen isn't trapped because queen g5, the queen can find a way back. In the game, Maxime played rook c8, but what is wrong with queen takes e4? Now's your chance to pause the video or let the timer run. How can white continue? The brilliant move is rook f7, just attacking the knight. If you defend the knight with queen e6, we attack the queen, and the queen has run out of squares. Rook to e7. Queen goes to g6, let's say. Then the knight drops. After queen takes e4, if rook f7, what happens if queen e8? It's the same move, rook e7. If the queen moves here, you drop the knight. If you play queen d8, continuing to defend the knight, I'll give you a moment, 3 seconds. Can you find mate in 3? First move, check. King in a corner, bishop, check. Check, mate. Nils plays rook f6. The black queen goes back to e8. How did Nils finish off MVL? Can you see all the way? This exercise will test your calculating ability. The first move is rook takes f8. Check. If knight takes, then knight f6 check will win the queen. Rook takes, if king takes, then the queen can come in with check. If the king comes out, we just close in, queen g7 check. And if the king comes out, knight f4 is mate. So let's play out that line. Take, take, check. Can't go in the corner. Can't go to the right because queen g7 is mate, so you come out, queen g7 still. All the red arrows the king can't go to, so the king can only come to e6. And the king is stranded here. So beautiful backward knight checkmate. Every square is guarded. Thank you so much for watching all the way until the end. If you enjoyed this video, why not give it a like and subscribe to the channel at the same time. Make sure you press the bell, then YouTube will let you know when I release a new video. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you later.